While most of the national attention is on the presidential race like it is every 4 years, it's not the only races that are going on across the country, okay? And in order to run an effective government, the president needs a Congress that aligns with their party. And so this is bringing us a lot of attention to the Senate races because the Senate is currently 51 seats Democrat, 49 seats Republican, okay? And the Democrats have a very, very, very rough map this cycle. Very rough map. They are defending a ton of incumbents, and specifically two that could make or break their entire majority in the Senate. Ohio with Senator Brown and Montana with Senator Tester. Okay, the fact that Montana even has a Democratic senator is insane, and it's almost like a historical accident that this dude has been kicking around for as long as he has. I think he got into the Senate like 2006, and somehow he's survived all the way up till now. But these races are starting to close in. And initially, we thought, okay, looks like Senator Brown from Ohio is going to be able to hold the line. He's winning by like 5, 6, 7 points per poll. Now the polls are like he's winning by 2. He's winning by 1. It's getting closer. And now John Tester had a lot of popularity in Montana. He was winning over Tim Sheehy by 5, by 4. Now he's losing by 5. He's losing by 4. And Democrats are now freaking out because they're like, okay, wait a second. Our path of keeping the Senate majority was holding on to Montana and Ohio, and now both of them are slipping through our fingers. They're trying to look at other places to invest. And so this brings us to Texas and Florida. Okay, first off, how do you feel about John Tester's chances after a couple of these polls? I know you've been a little bullish on him because of his personality.
Yeah, I have been bullish. But I tend to trust polls that come this close to the election.
Yeah, now that we're like 30 days away.
Yeah, and the story for why he would lose is so compelling.
It's so compelling.
Right? Like Trump won Montana by so much in both 2016 and 2020. You've kind of gone through multiple times how it has made sense that Tester has won all of the years that he won,
yes.
riding a blue wave in 2006.
That's exactly
riding
right.
Obama's coattails in 2012, riding a blue wave in 2018. I don't know. I can see how it makes so much sense that he would lose this.
Yeah, I mean, John Tester's only real path to victory is high turnout in the indigenous areas of the state. And Tim Sheehy has said disgustingly racist remarks about the Native Americans there. We'll put that up on the screen now, so you could read the headline on that and you could look into that. So he's just gone a whole diatribe about that stuff, but. Now, Democrats are looking a way to get out of this, and they're looking at Texas and Florida. Texas is currently represented by Republican Rick Scott, who is one of the least popular senators.
One of the most least popular.
Yeah, the double least popular person in the Senate. Okay, the guy's been he's been accused of Medicare fraud. You know, he had to settle with the U.S. government a while ago for defrauding Medicare. Just how do these people get elected, bro?
It's so scummy. Defrauding Medicare, that is as scummy as it gets.
You're screwing over seniors, bro, and then somehow the seniors in the villages of Florida still vote for the guy.
Yeah.
I'll never understand. But in 2018, he got into the Senate, and he got it by only like a 0.2% margin.
Oh, wow.
Excuse me. And it's because he's kind of unpopular. Because people just don't. He's kind of a scummy dude. He's ugly. He looks gross, and people are just like, ew. You know.
Okay.
That's just me being mean. But the point is, the Democrat running there looks like they have a lane. They're only down in the polls by like 2-3 points,
okay,
which is a pretty good sign. But there's an even better path to the Senate majority for the Democrats, and it runs through the unlikely state of Texas. Okay, Texas is represented right now by Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz has become a national figure for a long time now.
Yeah.
He ran for president in 2016. We all remember that garbage. And, he was super anti-Obamacare for a long time. Still is, obviously, but now he lies about it. So Ted Cruz, another very unpopular guy. You remember all the stories about him running away during the Cancun fiasco, running away to Cancun during like a big Texas storm.
I don't know about this.
You don't know about this?
No.
There was a huge Texas storm at a certain point, and Texas flew to Cancun, and it was terrible optics to be like, oh, while your state is in total disarray, you're going on vacation.
Yeah.
So it's a classic. But point is, his favorability rating has suffered a lot. And so Colin Allred, this ex-NFL football player turned lawyer turned congressman, is now running for this Senate seat. And he's doing a pretty good job. there have been some polls showing him like 1 point ahead, and then all other polls taken show him like 3 points behind, which means he's doing better than Tester.
Yeah, it's not great, but we've been watching the Allred Cruz polling for a long time in this race, because Texas is not like as red as you might think it is. Texas is like very much on the verge of becoming purple. And so you think, okay, Cruz is generally unpopular, but still early on in the race, you had like 5, 6, up to 10 point deficits in these polls from Allred to Cruz. Something that we talked about maybe only off camera is that maybe as Allred's name recognition goes up a little bit, things start to get better. So trending in the positive direction to me says, I mean, we've got another month
That's exactly
of this
right.
race, right?
Yes.
We don't know how much further things can go. And Cruz just makes sense to me as a very unpopular Republican, especially in that in how he can be contrasted with Trump. He obviously jumped onto the MAGA coattails pretty early on because he saw that his political future depended on it.
Slimy little bitch.
But people know that. Like,
Right.
people know that he's a slimy little bitch. Like, people know that he jumped on because he has no spine and that he only cares about himself. And they will still generally vote just Republican down the ballot. But I do think there are some people who kind of roll their eyes or grimace at Ted Cruz, and that might create an opening here for a Democrat.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that assessment. And yeah, I mean, Texas is closer to being a purple state than Minnesota, right? If we look at the 2022 results, Biden won Minnesota by like 9 points. Trump won Texas by 5. But somehow, some way, we always kind of say, "Oh, Minnesota might be purple this year." Well, Texas is already there.
So it's funny
that's your metric,
because I never thought Minnesota was purple until you like kind of had to tell me.
Yes.
No, actually, Minnesota, like it's been thought of as more swingy.
Well, because Hillary only won it by 3.
Yeah.
So Hillary was really close to losing it.
Okay.
But yeah, so now Colin Allred has this path, and the Democratic Party nationally is noticing this. And they're not taking money away from Tester, but the National Democratic Party is pushing money to Colin Allred in droves. And he has a huge deficit to make up, because currently the advertising that has already been scheduled out is like $17 million of advertising for Ted Cruz and only $1 million of advertising for Colin Allred from now until the election. So Colin Allred needs to get these reservations scheduled ASAP, and this National Democratic Party money is going to be what hopefully closes that gap. And I do believe he will, because so far he's been winning the advertising race.
Okay.
Yes, but if you take for future reservations now, he's behind.
Okay.
Yes. So he needs to catch up with the future reservations, and the National Democratic Party money is how he's going to be able to do that. But it's interesting to me that now we're in this scenario where an incumbent from Montana Democrat is less likely to win than challenging an incumbent Democrat from Texas. It says a lot about, I guess, the future of Texas and how that's going to go.
The demographic shifts going on there.
Yeah. But then lastly, there's one other Senate race that is coming out of basically nowhere that I think is super interesting. I've been watching it for a couple months, but I haven't really thought it necessary to talk about, because I thought talking about it would just be like a pie in the sky idea, and then only like a political junkie would even be thinking about it. But if we look at the Nebraska Senate race, okay, Nebraska is not a swing state at all. Trump is going to win the state of Nebraska by like 10 points or something, maybe more, okay? But there is a Senate race going on down there between the Republican Fisher and an independent candidate, Dan Osborne. And Dan Osborne is not associated with the Democratic Party at all. The Democratic Party in Nebraska did not run a candidate and has not endorsed Dan Osborne either, but there is no Democrat running in Nebraska. So Dan Osborne is running as a union leader. He worked at a Kellogg's manufacturing plant, and 2 years ago, he led a strike in 2022. He was then fired by Kellogg's after leading this strike, okay? And then he's turned to politics. And he has been barnstorming the state, going from county to county, from town to town. And Fisher, the Republican, hasn't made a single campaign stop during this entire race.
Oh my God.
And so I'm watching this over the last couple months. I'm like, it's cool and all. You know, Dan Osborne is a big union guy, big populist. And I'm like, okay, it would be cool if he won, but obviously the chances are very slim. And then a Survey USA poll drops. And Survey USA is the best pollster in the country, shows Osborne up 46 to 45. And then the discourse online starts changing, and the senatorial math starts changing. Because wait a second, now what happens if Republicans get 50 seats, Democrats 49, but the White House, Dan Osborne, this independent union organizer who's never been in politics the day in his life, all of a sudden becomes the kingmaker in the Senate, which is just a crazy of a political story.
That's so exciting.
It's exciting. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Wow.
And now Dan Osborne has said, he's like, I'm not caucusing with anybody under any circumstance. I am not joining the Democratic Party in the Senate. I'm not joining the Republicans in the Senate. But what this at least could mean is that there would be an open process where Dan Osborne, because Dan Osborne is going to get to make a lot of the rules. And when this gets technical, but like, it depends on who people caucus with, because that determines the balance of committee assignments, which committees are most populated by Democrats, which committee. Anyway, he would probably go for an even hand, equal on each. But what that would mean is more bills would get to the floor. And Dan Osborne just flat out agrees with more anti-corporate, pro-regulatory, pro-taxes on the rich type things that is going to be more conducive to getting Democratic bills passed. So it would be good for Democrats in the long run if Dan Osborne wins. It's still of a shot in the dark, but it's really interesting to see an independent just shoot up like out of nowhere like this.
Yeah, I really it's cool to see that the American people like someone who it seems isn't going to just hew to party lines.
Yeah.
Because there's a theory at least that a voter, like part of why the voter chooses D or R is because they feel like they can trust that person to vote in the interests of that party that they feel aligned with. But instead, Dan Osborne seems like he's getting support because it's the opposite. Because he won't just vote along those lines.
Dan Osborne is getting support because of the issues, which is really, I love to see that. He's getting support because of the issues, and he's getting support because he's an outsider, and it's because he's showing up. He's showing up to the towns where the Republican Fisher is not showing up. He's showing that he has the best interest in the people in mind. Where Fisher isn't even making that argument. She's not even going out there, and he's capitalizing on that. And I also think it would be amazing for a union guy to be a senator. You know? I mean, totally. That's so badass.
Yeah.
So the Senate math is getting more and more interesting by the day. We'll probably do more updates on the Senate race as we get closer. We're only 35 days away, guys. 35 days or something like that.
Oh my God, that's going to be insane.
It's insane.